I hope you guys are ready, because we're finally gonna do this. So grab your brew. It's been long enough, I think, that I've been using the machine to actually be able to show you guys what I think of it. And honestly, I still like it. I really still like it. It has its flaws. It really has its flaws. But for the money you pay for this machine, not a lot I can say about it, that I'm really enjoying it. Is it perfect? Far from it. So let's dive into that and see what we get. So in my machine, I'm using the BD30 spindle taper with a 2.5 horsepower motor, 8,000 RPM, and a power drawbar. Underneath the weight covers, I have 700 watt servo motors for each axis. This is the same servo motor for the X, Y, and Z. This being my machine, I have done quite a bit of upgrades on it, and I'm still not done with them. The power bar you see on the floor is what's running the actual computer at this moment, which is about to change in about a week and a half. I've got a new system that's going to be in the back of the machine, but for now it's this old Intel server that's running Linux CNC itself. This is not what the SkyFire ships with. Neither is the electrical cabinet that I have done at the bottom there. And I will show you guys in a bit where the normal electrical cabinet is. But this is my iteration of the SkyFire electrics. So after getting a machine, the first thing I did was get a tube of silicone and just seal the crap out of it. The main things were the cabinet all around the machine. But you also have things like inside of the machine. Sealing up your machine is probably going to be the main thing you have to worry about in the beginning. It's getting all the cracks and crunnies and being able to get a watertight seal on your case. Otherwise, you're going to have coolant all over the floor, especially if you put in an aftermarket higher pressure pump like I have. The original SkyFire comes with only one coolant nozzle and a very small coolant pump. I've upgraded my machine to contain a 4-bar pump with about 2,800 liters instead of the 120 you were getting from the original pump. This does mean that you do get significant amount of coolant splatter when the machine is in full Z retract. If you seal your cabinet well enough, and you do require quite a bit of sealing, you will get less of an issue with this. Now, one of the things I really want to point out and say that they did really well is they've added metal weight covers in the front. This means if you drop a part when you're loading or unloading it, it won't damage your ways, it won't damage the plastic cover. It's a stainless thick cover. That is awesome. The cable chains you see on the left of the Y-axis are not original. These are the one of the additions that I put in afterwards. Originally, the cables of the X-axis are connected through a plastic tube that goes from the electrical cabinet down to the cover plate on the Z-axis, on the X-axis itself. Here you see one of the gripes I have about the machine. It's not really a problem as well, but actually opening and closing the door, it comes in and out of your machine, dripping coolant all over the place. And the teacher on YouTube had a really good comment about blowing your air gun on the side first to get the window clean. Now, I found a better solution. One, I still have my drip pan underneath the window, which I will keep there probably forever. But I find another solution that you guys might consider. On the inside of the machine, I have added rubber wipers that basically act as windshield wipers. So every time you open and close the door, well, mainly open the door, it wipes off all the excess coolant back into the machine. No problem anymore. There is where I mount my GoPro, and behind that is the coolant manifold that we have upgraded. Originally this was a 1-in, 1-out coolant manifold, and I have upgraded it to a 1-in, 3-out coolant manifold, and I'm thinking of even adding a new one to it to get even more nozzles all around the spindle nose. I do think the chip tray is not the greatest design. It is a bin design that you need to pull up and slide out, and every time you do that you get coolant all over the place. So I have a big plastic tub that I put in front of the machine first, and then I pull the chip tray right into that plastic tub, trying to catch as much of the coolant as I can so it doesn't spill all over the floor. This is the upgraded electrical cabinet I was talking about. Because I put it here now in a bigger box, I was able to add more circuit protection, more relays, and more optional equipment in it, giving me more options in the future. Like I was able to add more relays for some cool little LED control that I will be doing in a upcoming project. I also now was able to put a breaker for every single drive instead of one breaker for all the drives. Does it really require that? No, but it makes life easier when debugging, when doing testing, and when playing with settings. You don't have to shut down all the drives or the entire machine. You can just do the one thing to the one drive because you can shut it off separately from everything else. This here in the back was the old electrical cabinet, and it's kind of hard to show you because the machine is kind of squished up against the wall. But we have basically converted to the new living area for the PC, which is going to be on that shelf. And underneath that, the connections for the motors and encoders reside. Basically, the motors and the encoders come from the machine on those terminal blocks, and then from there go with shielded wire to the according drives and servo drives. So the main question I get from you guys is, what is the price of the machine? What is the quality of the machine? And how was the support of it? For the delivery time, I can't really answer that one because my machine was a prototype. I'm the first guy that has the Linux CNC control board on my machine, and it took longer than expected to get everything compatible from their industrial control to work with Linux CNC because it has a little bit of a different way to controlling things. Now, price, I'm happy. In the fact that I live in Europe, I really can't get much of another choice. We don't have things like Thormac here. We don't have other really good options. The only really option you have is going full DIY, buying a off-the-shelf, just standard hand machining milling machine, and converting it, or building your own from scratch, or going to Haas or DMG for that matter. Now that gets really expensive really quickly, and it's time consuming in the first one. The second one, Haas and the GMG, just expensive. But after a lot of searching, because I actually wanted to get a Tormac here, and they didn't even reply anymore after a while, probably because they don't even have the European safety standards, to my knowledge. Now, this being a Chinese machine, I must say I'm not 100% sure it does have all the safety standards, although as an electrician myself, I didn't find too many things wrong with it. Yes, I did rewire my electrical cabinet, but that's more of personal preferences than anything else. The main problems I had was, again, leaking on the machine on all sides, so you silicone up all those leakages, and it takes you a while to find all of them, so spend your time, get some good silicone, and just smack the hell out of it. Second thing you should do is get a new coolant pump. I spend about 80 euros of getting a new, I think it's like a pond pump they use, or like a small well pump, and I will show you this later. But I got me that for about 80 euros. I got me hoses and couplings, and the hoses and couplings were actually way more expensive than I thought of, because I have these braided stainless hoses that can go up to 18 bars. Now my pump is only 4 bars, but I wanted to have something that was upgradable to the future, because I'm planning on getting a 10 bar pump in here for a future project that we're looking at. So sealing the machine, getting a new coolant pump, big wins. For the Linux CNC part is, I don't think Linux CNC is for everybody. Even I personally am starting to doubt that I should have gone with Linux CNC, because it is a really tricky software. SkyFire does not have its own version of Linux CNC like Tormag does with PathPilot. Now, that means that if you want custom features in these, that if you want features that are combined with a Tormag, you need to build them yourself, which is another rabbit hole. It takes a lot of time to get to know how to program Linux CNC, to know how to do the user interface stuff, and then make it work properly. So if you're inexperienced in IT stuff, in coding, in all that stuff, get the industrial control. If you're just looking for a machine that you can put in your shop and run without messing with programming the control, get the industrial control. That's all I can say. If you get Linux CNC, like I did, there's a lot of fiddling with it. If you want to get features in it, like I got the load meter, which does not come standard with Linux CNC, you have to program it in. I want access control on it, so it checks if the servos are in error and which error it's providing and put that up on the display. You need to program it. If you want automatic tool offsetting, like when it picks a tool from the ATC and automatically checks its height, you need to program it. So if you're not really experienced with Linux CNC or do not know where to find all the stuff, which I have not been able to find all of it, so I'm still learning a lot, go with the industrial control, save yourself the hassle, and just make sure you have a machine that works. Now, that said, the industrial control you can't do anything afterwards with, or less so than in Linux CNC. The benefit of Linux CNC is you can program anything in it. Get a user interface to your liking and basically make the machine your machine. It does require a lot of experience with coding, with programming Linux CNC, but if you're up for that, why not? And if you do, share it with us because I want to learn from you then. Now, a few of the upgrades that I have done on my machine is I have moved the electrical cabinet, which is on the right hand back side, to the bottom side, and I will show you a couple of shots of that, because the original electrical cabinet is way too small. It is about this wide and half a meter high, and everything is in there. It is so cramped. It runs, but if you want to change, let's say, the servo braking resistor, you need to take everything out. You need to completely disassemble the electrical cabinet to get to the braking resistor and change it out. It works, but personally I couldn't live with it, and we just completely rebuilt the entire electrics of the machine and put them all on the side in a way bigger box, way more spacing, more cooling, and have just an overall nicer electrical cabinet. And I'm really hoping that SkyFire CNC is taking on some of the modifications that we're doing on the machine and putting them in all future machines. And from what I have seen, they are. We had sensor problems way in the beginning. When you first got the machine, we had sensor problems. The X, Y, and Z, not as much as the Z because they're all on the top, but the X and Y axis limit switches and homing sensors were not waterproof. And we had the problem that after a while, coolants, because we have so much coolant pressure, coolant got in the switches and they failed. So I immediately went to SkyFire CNC with this problem and they addressed it. They sent us out new switches. They told us, look, good that you found this problem, we're changing it. And they did. Every machine, after we addressed the problem, now has completely IP, I think it's 65, I have to check it out, but I think it's IP65 waterproof switches, which is awesome. So as a conclusion, do I like the SkyFire SVM-2? Definitely yes. For me personally, it's definitely worth every penny I've spent on it. I've sweared at it, I've had a good time with it, I've had a bad time with it, but at the end of the day, it pulls through. It does what it's supposed to do. It's a CNC machine, it's a sturdy CNC machine, it's a capable CNC machine. It's got very good quality spindle drive, servo motors, linear ways, and ball screws. Is it perfect? Far from it. But look beyond the paint on the casting and look beyond the paint on the housing. And if you see the functionality that the machine has, if you see the features that the machine has, it is definitely worth its money. So I hope that helps you guys out and gives you a better view of the machine itself. Again, I'm sorry that my machine isn't really super stock anymore with the electrical cabinet that's changed and the cable chains here on the side. but everything still is still the same. It's just I moved some things around on the machine. Apart from the coolant pump, of course. If you have any more questions, feel free to shoot them in the comments, shoot them on Instagram, and definitely follow me on Instagram if you want to see more of this. I do posts almost every day. I try, not able to do every day because I don't have content every day, but I try and post every day. And again, I will try video stuff to do more because now I have a bigger camera pod and I will show you guys as well. Now we go like this. I now have a nice tripod and a nice head on it and some more lighting. So I will be doing more videos and I hope you guys will be watching. Thanks and see you next time.